Hi, my name is Sarah and I play a lot of Symmetra. Most of the guides that I see about playing Symmetra or other heroes are sort of the tips and tricks variety, and I find that although they give useful information, they don't always tell you how to make the right decision in the moment and how to choose the right tip or trick based on like a whole bunch of competing factors that are happening right at the moment within the game. And so what I want to try to do today is go through an actual game that I've really played in the past and talk about all the decisions that I made and what my thought process was and why I ended up making the decisions that I did, some of which were right and some were wrong. And so I'll talk about both of them as I'm going through the game. Now Symmetra is a little bit different than some of the other heroes in that her kit is sort of an eclectic mix of abilities and skills, as I'm sure you know if you're watching this video. But because they're so different, there's a lot of information to think about for how to play each one of them optimally. And so as a result, I'm definitely not going to fit all of the Symmetra strategy that I use into one video because there's just too much. Also, Symmetra, unlike the other heroes, a lot of her strategy is really map related because she does so much setting up like static structures. It really depends on the map and where you expect your enemies to be throughout the playing of that map. So this game that I'm talking about today was on Hanamura defense, but I'm probably going to be making some more videos, at least one more, probably two or three more, to really get all of the Symmetra information out. So this isn't going to be comprehensive, but hopefully it'll be to start, and if you're trying to improve your Symmetra game, hopefully it'll give you some tips to get you on your way. Also, I'm going to be talking mostly, or well, exclusively about Symmetra defense today. I know there are some people who have been able to successfully play Symmetra on offense, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm really just talking about how to play her on a defense map. So let's get started. The first thing that I think about when I play Symmetra is what to do as soon as I appear in the spawn. And pretty much across the board, the first thing that I do is try to shield my teammates. As soon as you walk from the spawn to like the point where all the action is going to happen, your teammates are going to spread in like 6 different directions, and you're going to have to chase them down, and it'll be hard to shield everybody. So what I found typically works best is the second you appear in spawn, shield everyone you can see as quickly as you can before they walk out of range. And as you're walking to the point, sometimes what I'll do is I'll turn around like backwards and walk backwards so I can shield them as they're approaching me, and if somebody's too far away I can pause for a second and let them walk into range. But I find that this is the most important thing, or it's very important to do this first thing in the game because otherwise you might miss your chance, and it's hard to keep track of which person you've shielded and which person you haven't. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the game. But that's the first thing I do. The next thing I do is immediately start to go set up my turrets. So if you aren't aware, Symmetra gets 6 turrets, but every time you place one, there's a little bit of a cooldown. Or after you place 3, there's a little bit of a cooldown. And so you'll see here, if you look in the corner here, I have like more of them that are building for me to be able to place. But what that means is there's going to be sort of a built-in delay after I set the first 3 or 4 turrets down before I can set the rest. So if you don't get all your teammates shielded as you're walking out, I recommend setting down your first 3 or 4 turrets, and then when you have that little break in the middle, to then like look around for anyone else you need to shield before you go back and set up the rest of your turrets. On some maps, like Hanamura, I usually can't like fit in all of the turrets before the game starts because we have such a long walk from spawn, but it usually ends up being okay because the enemies usually don't get inside the gate fast enough for it to really be a problem. Let's go back here to where I was setting up the turrets real quick. We can see here that my guiding principle for setting up turrets is mostly to make sure that the target of my turrets doesn't see them until after he's getting shot by them. And so what that usually means is try to shoot your enemies in the back with your turrets. And what that usually means is put them someplace where your turrets aren't going to get triggered on the enemy until after the enemy has walked past them. So a great example is right here in this shot. You can see that anybody who comes through this window, let's say I put a turret right here on this wall. When they first walk in the window, the turret will see them, it'll shoot them right in front of their face, and it'll be really easy for them to shoot and take it out. On the other hand, if I have a turret over here on this wall on the inside of the gate, this little column right here sticks out just enough that if an enemy walks through this window and comes towards the camera as it's pointed right now, then the turret won't start shooting them until they're several feet past it, and so they'll hear it and they'll see their damage, but they won't actually know where it's coming from. And so while they're looking all around, that's time that they're taking damage. And Symmetra's turrets damage at 25 DPS, so it's non-trivial. And obviously, the more turrets you can set up to be getting someone simultaneously, the more effective that is. So I could really make a whole video about where to place turrets, but that's probably good enough for right now. I really try to put them in different locations and different maps because obviously it's very map specific. But this arrangement that I have here that you'll see throughout the game is what I've typically been doing on Hanamura lately on defense, and it's mostly been pretty effective. I get lots of kills that I don't even have to think about because people walk through. I'll pause it right here. They'll walk through this window, and then they'll see this one. This is usually the first turret to go, because sometimes they can see it from outside, depending on how slowly they approach. But they see this one, they also get shot with this one while they're standing here, and then they're taking damage while they take these out. And finally they're like, all right, it's good. Maybe they destroy these, maybe they don't. Maybe they try to just like run inside to their left. But then as soon as they get around, these turrets start shooting them, and I get a lot of kills this way. It's a really easy way to make this window less of a threat than it might otherwise be. Once my turrets are set up and my teammates are shielded, I start looking for opportunities to use my alt fire. And it's just sort of a fact of life with Symmetra that sometimes she has these little moments of downtime. Once you want to keep your turrets up and you want to keep your teammates shielded, but other than those two things, which I sort of have in a loop in the back of my mind all the time, sometimes you'll not really be able to do anything because Symmetra's primary fire only has a radius of 5 meters. And so if all of the enemies are like way outside the gate, sometimes you just can't do anything, and like that's okay. What you can do during that time is take Symmetra's alt fire and shoot it down where the enemies are likely to be, which sounds kind of like wimpy and like playing roulette, and I guess kind of it is. But Symmetra's alt fire is actually really powerful. It you hold it to charge, and it ranges from 25 DPS to 125 DPS, which is a pretty substantial bunch of damage. If you're someone like Farah, for example, who has 20 hit points or 200 hit points, then 125 all at once from a fully charged orb is pretty significant. So even if you only hit an enemy, 1 out of 8 times, it's still pretty significant that 1 out of 8 times. It can make a big difference. Also, it goes through a Reinhardt shield. So Symmetra's alt fire is, I feel like, kind of stupid, and it's definitely the most embarrassing way to take damage when you're playing Overwatch, but it's definitely still worth doing. So often after I've set up my turrets here, if no enemies are coming in for me to shoot with my primary fire, I'll hold down my alt fire and start it charging, and then go out to the gate and then just shoot it where the enemies are likely to be. Now, right here I went after that Reaper. Let's talk about that a little bit. I think that was actually a bad idea, even though it worked out pretty well for me. So, turned around here, I wanted to set down my 6th turret, but I didn't have time because I saw him coming in. So I told my team that he was coming, and went towards him. Now, the longer you play Symmetra, the more you're going to get an intuitive sense of what heroes you can take in a one-on-one fight. This game is from about 2 months ago, and at this point I didn't really have solidified in my mind that Symmetra really can't take on Reaper in a one-on-one fight. She can take him on if he's significantly damaged, if he's distracted, if he's fighting with another teammate. But when he walked in here, I didn't really know how much health he had. Turns out, as I got close, we can see he's actually quite low health, so I did fine. Everything worked out great. But it's a good thing to keep in mind. Genjis and Tracers and Mercies are really great, and even a D.Va sometimes, depending on how good of a D.Va she is. Now right here you can see I've gone back into my Symmetra loop. Let me back up for a second. So I was checking out up here just to see if anyone was going to come in. Sometimes I like to keep an eye on my turrets in this window so that I can do some cleanup. If I see a Farah come in, I might run over so that I can add a little bit of damage with my primary fire in addition to my turrets. But just keeping an eye on those shots that were coming in, but it looks like it wasn't necessary. So I went back into my loop, which was making sure the turrets are up, which they are, making sure my teammates are shielded, and then dropping my alt fire. And this right here, what you see, is actually a technique I use a lot. I start charging my fire when I'm in a safe spot, and then I quick jump out into where I can see the enemies or where the enemies might be, and then I release my fire. So let's take a look at that. I'll back up again. So right here, I've started to charge it. You can see from this glow that I'm actually already holding down my alt fire. And so I come around here to the left, and then I'm looking here, I'm looking here, I'm looking in the top of the ramen house and the bottom of the ramen house, and I'm looking for anywhere an enemy might be so that I can drop my orb just kind of in that direction. Because, I mean, it's really going to be chance whether you get them or not. But you want to, you know, maximize your chances where you can. And so up here you can see, like more specifically, I start charging right here. You can see it's glowing. And then I come around, and as soon as I come around, I see this widow who fired right here. And so I know she's up here. And so as soon as I see her, I decide I want to pick the trajectory, and I release the orb right at the time that it's going to go kind of in the direction of where she was. It's not... Sometimes when you do that, you're not moving, you're sort of constantly rotating. So every once in a while I release the orb and it like rams into a wall and disappears, and then I feel stupid. But it's okay, and I found it to be a pretty effective technique to contribute to defending the gate even when there's nobody anywhere near you that you can use your primary fire on. So let's move on. So this is mostly my default when there's nothing interesting happening around me. I can see that some people are going to come in here, and I'm going to try to use my primary fire on them, but as it happens, things went from bad to worse pretty quickly, and even though I ended up contributing to the demise of, I guess, the Reinhardt, the Winston got me. Symmetra's primary fire is really, really great. One of the things to know about it, for those of you who may not be familiar, is that it actually gets stronger as you keep contact with the target that you're firing at. So when it starts out, when you first when someone comes within range, within the 5 meters, and you hit them with your beam, it starts out at 30 DPS, and then after the first second is complete, it moves on to 60 DPS, and then after the second is complete, it moves on to 120, is that right? Yeah, 120 DPS. And so what that means is that after 3 seconds, you're at 210 total damage, which is more than enough to kill a Pharah and many other heroes. It also means that it's really important when you're fighting a hero that you keep your beam on them, because if you break the beam, it resets. So it's much more important to keep them within sight, which, in case you're unaware, you have to keep them actually like physically on your screen. You have to keep that continuous line of sight, and that'll keep Symmetra's beam going as long as they're still within the 5 meter radius. So it's really good to know about that, and it's good to really highly prioritize making sure that beam doesn't break because you looked off your hero. Now right here, as I'm walking back from dying, you can see that my ult is coming up on 100. One of the things that's really important to do with Symmetra is to have sort of an ult awareness that triggers in your mind before your ult is ready. Because one of the most frustrating things to happen with Symmetra is you're out on the point somewhere defending, and then you see the big flash and you think, oh great, my ult's ready. And so you start, oh, where am I going to go? And maybe I'll put it over there, and you start thinking about it, or maybe you even know where you're going to go, but you start heading in that direction, and then like someone appears and kills you, and you die on the way, and you aren't able to put your teleporter down. And so one of the things that I've started to do is I try to really be aware, when more so with Symmetra than other heroes, when my ult is at like 90%, something like that. And so if I'm out on the point, in this case I was dead when it turned, so it didn't really matter, but so if you are out on the point, when it's at 90%, you can start thinking, oh, okay, where am I going to go? Like, I'll put myself on the side of the point where I'm planning to put the teleporter, and that way, I can play more conservatively, I can make it less likely that I'm going to die, so that I can really set it down when I want to. And we won't all be dead, and I'll have my teleporter running back with everybody else. So that's something that I think is really important to keep in mind, is that awareness, and then as soon as you are getting anywhere near that teleporter, just play super conservatively. So in this game, I can see that it's ready, and I drop it on the health. Little known fact, teleporters can pick up health. So if you place it on a health pack, that increases the odds that it'll survive longer. Now in this case, I made a critical error, as you can see from my demise. I walked onto the point here and saw this Reinhardt appear. Here he comes, and I started to take him out. Now, the reason I made this mistake was because I knew we had a Mei on the point. You can see right here, just a moment. I knew we had this Mei right over here on the right, and so I was thinking like, okay, well, I can take Reinhardt if Reinhardt's distracted, much like what I was describing with Reaper before. A lot of tanks, if they're really not paying attention to me, and I can come up behind them, then I have a pretty good shot at taking them out. And so I knew that we had this Mei on the point. It was 2-on-1, and I thought it's probably worth going after this Reinhardt. Well, the thing I didn't really consider is that he's right in front of the bell. Maybe he knew the Mei was there, maybe he didn't, but I'm definitely the more direct target for him, or the biggest threat to him right at this moment. And like a one-on-one fight with a Reinhardt as a Symmetra is not a fight you want to take. If you have turrets, if he's at low health, maybe take it then. But if he's at full health, as this one was, it's not a wise thing to do. Now, incidentally, if you do the math with Symmetra's primary fire, as I mentioned before, increasing to 120 DPS, it takes about between 5 and 6 seconds, not more than 5, but fewer than 6, to take a Reinhardt from full health and kill him with Symmetra's primary fire. So that's pretty hard to keep him on a continuous beam for 6 seconds while he's trying to hammer you. And it's especially hard because, as I mentioned, Symmetra's beam radius is 5 meters, and Reinhardt's hammer radius is also 5 meters. So it's a pretty chancy thing. If you think you can last a while, if you think you can dodge his hammers, you can maybe do it, but I would not recommend it as a one-on-one battle, and that's what I inadvertently took here. And I don't recommend. So I died here. Also, he had his ult, which definitely didn't help me. And eventually, Mei and others will take care of him, so that's good. So as I walk out here, I go into my Symmetra loop. The first thing I'm noticing is that I don't have any turrets up. I mean, I can sort of see because I don't have any turret indicators over here in the distance, but also I can look at the spot where it would show me how many turrets that I have, and there's nothing there. So like all of my turrets are down. So my first order of business is put a bunch of turrets down so that they can be doing work for me, and my sort of simultaneous second order of business is make sure everybody gets shielded. The way Symmetra shields work, is that when you place a shield on a hero or a teammate, that shield will stay there until they die or until you switch off of Symmetra. So if they die and they get rezzed again, they won't have a shield. If they die and they walk back, they won't have a shield, and you need to put it on them again. Now, one thing, sometimes it can be difficult to tell if your teammates actually have, if they actually have a shield on them. And so I think the most common way that people usually look is they look at their allies' health bars right here. And we can see this is all white, and so he probably doesn't have a shield. However, sometimes you'll have shielded a teammate, and then that shield will be temporarily down because they've just taken some damage, and so it's waiting to replenish. And so when you look at their health bar, maybe it's incomplete, but it's still all white, and you don't see the shield there. And so you might spend some time trying to shield them, or thinking that maybe it didn't take, or you're trying to figure it out. When in fact they actually still have the shield from before, you just couldn't tell. And so the much more reliable way to tell if your teammate has a shield is whether you see this like crosshair diamond indicator here. When you see that, as Symmetra, this means this teammate has no shields. And so you don't even have to look at the health bar, you just have to look and train your mind to look for this little diamond, and when you see that, be like, there's someone who needs to be shielded. And so as I walk out here, like it's not even I don't even have to put a thought into it. I'm like, oh, there's the indicator, and then I just start spamming the shield button until everybody's covered. So so that's definitely the more reliable way to handle that. Now, I came over here because I saw this Symmetra, or this Pharah, and but unfortunately she knew where I was, so I sort of gave up on her, which is another thing that's really important to do with Symmetra. Sometimes you just can't win fights, and you should be aware of that and try to run away well in advance. And as you know, until you know what heroes you have and the circumstances under which you have a good odds of taking out a hero, sometimes it's hard to do that, and sometimes you'll die, and like, well, that's the breaks. But it's good to have that in mind. And on a side note, one of the reasons that I went after that Pharah is because Symmetras are actually pretty good at taking down Pharahs. You wouldn't think they would be, because Pharahs are so far away usually. But the thing is that Pharahs have this great optimism that they can escape a Symmetra because they can rocket jump. But what you want to do is catch them on the far side of the rocket jump. They jump up, you stand under them, you kind of look, and you wait until they come down, and then as soon as they get within your range, even if they're up in the air, if within that 5 meters, you can shoot them from down below, and then they don't have the rocket jump. As I was saying, I said before, it takes 3 seconds to do 210 damage of uninterrupted primary fire. And so what that means is Farah's only 200. So all you have to do is hold it for 3 seconds, and it takes her rocket jump 10 seconds to respawn. So if with a little bit of planning and, you know, trying to stay under Farah, usually Farahs aren't looking straight down. They're usually looking like over there. And so if you stay right under Farah and watch for where she's going to come down, you can actually kill them really often, which is really satisfying. Although not in this case, I couldn't get her. But anyway, so I walk back in here, and you'll notice right as I did, maybe you caught it, the diamond indicator appeared over our Mercy. I'll back it up here. And so as I walked up, I immediately could tell, oh, my Mercy isn't shielded, so I just shield her on the way to whatever I'm doing. And then I start setting up turrets on the point. Now, generally speaking, when I'm on a map like this, or like Volskaya on defense as Symmetra, I try to work with my team so that we have a clear picture of where we're defending at any given moment. We're either, if things are in disarray, if we don't have control of the situation, then we're usually on the point the way we are now. Like, there's that Pharaoh over there, although I ski from the kill cam, she's dead. But I didn't know what the situation was. Maybe there's a tracer about to come around the corner in the back. And so in this situation, like, we don't know what's going on. I just want to set up shop right here on the point until the situation is under control again. And so I started doing this, but then as I talked to my teammates, we decided that it was secure and that it was time to move back to the gate and set up shop out here again. And you can see all of my teammates are over here setting up a defense again. And so it's important to just sort of think of yourself as there's one point I'm defending right now, and unless I'm in emergency mode, I need to be setting up my defense at that point. And I need to have my team's cooperation. If you're solo queuing, you know, maybe you can't get that kind of cooperation from your team, and you have to sort of decide for yourself. But I find that it's best with Symmetra to don't just put turrets anywhere. Like, have a place, have a plan for what you're going to do with them. So what happened there? I got taken out by the Winston. So the next thing, come back to the point here. Happily, my turret's still up. You'll notice right there, I looked behind me, and I saw that Reaper and Mercy. Let's go back. So I came out of the teleporter, and first thing I had in my head upon respawning is, oh, let me get rid of that screen. First thing I had in my head is my Symmetra loop. I'm going to put my turrets back up, and I'm going to make sure all my teammates are shielded. So I walk out of here planning to do that. And then I see that we've got this Reaper and Mercy over here. And so, now, I mentioned before the problems with trying to take on a Reaper, not to mention a Reaper who's being boosted by a Mercy. So obviously this is a one-on-one fight that I'm not going to be able to win. But given that, I want to run away, and I want to run away in one particular direction. And that direction is towards my turrets. Like, I want to set up a kill room where I have the best chance of taking out whoever's trying to kill me. And my turrets are going to give me the best chance of doing that. So I see them, and I'm like, ah! And so I run in here. Unfortunately, it turns out that Reaper and Mercy had a mission, and the mission was to take out my teleporter, which they're going to do here in a moment. There it goes. See, now it's destroyed. But I know they're going to be in here in a second. So I want to keep putting my turrets up, which is super high priority, so that as soon as they come in, they have the most odds of dying. As it happened, he came in the way I wasn't expecting, although eventually they did take care of him, but we got sort of overwhelmed here. You can see there are a lot of guys on the point. And so they're taking down my turrets one after another, which is what you hate to see. But whatever. So then I come back out here. I have to walk all the way back, and this is like my least favorite part of playing Symmetra, is walking back and seeing people on the point, because she walks so slowly and she can't do anything. And I mean, I know it's true of other heroes, but I hate it. So we come all the way back out here, and let me skip ahead. And then immediately I start shielding people, and I start setting up turrets. Now, the principles that I'm using here for setting up turrets on the point are that I want them to be as far away from each other as I can make them, while still placing them in such a way that that multiple turrets will hit a hero at the same time. And so you can see here with this Farah, like, I have these turrets on the opposite side of the doors, but they're both able to hit her. But for Farah, she has to take 2 separate shots to kill them. No way can she take them out in one shot. And specifically what I think of with this is Winston, who loves to be like, surprise, I took out all of your turrets with 1 shot of my stupid weapon. And so you want to try to put them far enough away that they'll still all point to the same hero, but they won't be quite so easy to take out. So I take her out super fast, and then I set the teleporter here. Now, I think this is a little bit suboptimal because, well, let me back up and I'll talk more about my strategy. When I turn around here, right before I set the teleporter down, I can see it's ready. We've got this Farah on the point, and we've got this Reinhardt on the point. And even though I took the Farah down, I'm really nervous about the situation. I don't know who's inside the gate that we have to worry about, and I really want to set the teleporter down. But I can see that the point is contested. I don't know how contested it is, and I don't really know how many of my teammates are on here. And so even though ideally I'd like to put my teleporter in a place that's a lot more safe and secure, I don't think it's a wise decision to leave the point to do that. So I decided to put it on the point, which I think was an okay strategy. But in this case, I put it in a stupid location because I should have put it in this far corner over here instead of this near corner where I'm standing. Notably, because this near corner is visible through the gate from like being outside the gate, someone can take my teleporter out. If I put it in this near corner or this other corner on the left, both of those would have been much better places. And maybe it still wouldn't have been the strongest teleporter location, but for having to make it one of several suboptimal choices, I think that these two corners near the gate would have been better options. But in any case, this is where I placed it. And so then I keep putting my turrets down, and you can see they're all about as far apart as I can make them. I keep shielding people in the background, and I really like this turret placement on Hanamura A because the doors are so wide that I can really spread these turrets out a lot and yet cover almost the whole point with my 6 turrets. And so it really works out well. So you see I have 6 placed here, and now watch, let's check out this Reaper. He just flew in, and you can see he's already got 2 turrets on him. As he comes over here, let me do this, he's got 4 turrets on him and me. And these are all 25 DPS, and I'm going from 30 to 60 to 120 DPS. And look at his health. He was at full health when he came in here. And so then he just like melts. And then everybody else comes in, and the same thing happens. I can just contribute to them with my turrets, and they're all really far apart, and nobody can take them out fast enough. And then we got a team kill, and I got play of the game. And so that's a really good strategy. I really like that for turrets on Hanamura 2. Sometimes you get an enemy team who's really proactive about taking turrets out, and I sort of theorize that they have a Symmetra on the team who's like, I'm going to get these because I know how damaging they can be. And so when that happens, you have to pick new locations, and sometimes you need to switch off Symmetra. Sometimes you have a team that you play who's just really proactive about being aware of turrets and not letting the turrets give them the upper hand. So when that happens, sometimes you have to switch off. I would love it if you guys would tell me what you like about this video, what you don't like about this video, or what you'd like to see in future Symmetra videos. I'm definitely planning to talk a lot more about my rationales for turret placement and where I put turrets on different maps, and some more thoughts on like teleporter placement. All those could almost make a whole video on their own, so I'm definitely planning to do that. But I'd love to hear your feedback, and I read all the comments that I get. I don't reply to all of them, but I reply to most of them. So if you have any comments for me, definitely please share. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, if you like this video, I have some really similar videos that I made about Mercy, about playing Mercy, whom I also play a lot. So you can check those out. And finally, if you could do me a favor, I would super appreciate it if you would like my video. I know creators are always like, oh, like and subscribe, but like it actually really matters. It actually really helps because YouTube uses those likes to help decide what videos to promote to other people on YouTube. So it definitely helps. You should do that for any creator that you really like. They will super appreciate it, and I will certainly appreciate it if you guys would like my video. If you liked it. If you didn't like it, like, no pressure. You don't have to do it then. If you'd like me to make more of these videos, I would also super appreciate it if you wanted to support me on Patreon. These videos are actually pretty time-consuming. I do a lot of preparation, and it's sometimes hard to find the time and prioritize it with my other responsibilities. So anyway, if you support me on Patreon, I can definitely like get a video editor and save some more time, and I'll be able to put out a lot more of these than I currently am able to. I also stream a lot of Overwatch right here on YouTube, so if you're interested in watching, I'll put a link in here to a video from an archived stream, but if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook, I announce there right before I stream. You can also subscribe to me, although that doesn't always tell you exactly when I'm streaming, so Twitter or Facebook are more reliable for that. But I guess that's all. Thank you guys for watching, and have fun!